Hello and welcome to First Issues Weekly, the compilation of the weekly comic review show First Issues Now. Every day you can check out the newest First Issues reviewed on First Issues Now, wherever you listen to podcasts, or weekly in a batch like this right now. I'm AJ Carey, the comic archivist, and these are the comics released for the week of September 3rd, 2025. Ironically, in the script I wrote, you'll know before me if this was a good week or not, and given that I'm releasing this 2 days after I usually would, you can kind of tell what's been going on. So the summer of Superman continues, and I'm riding high on the hope core that was the most punk rock movie of the summer, so I'll still be here for that big blue Boy Scout. This is Adventures of Superman, Book of L, number 1, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, art by Scott Godlewski, colors by Alex Gumarius, with letters by Dave Sharp. Let's go with the solicit real quick just to clarify a lot. Superman returns. Fan favorite Future State Superman House of L creators Philip Kennedy Johnson and Scott Godlewski reunite for Adventures of Superman, Book of L. As the super family settles in with a well-earned time of peace, a powerful ally-turned-enemy invades Earth, with an army at his back and a god aspect of Olgrun, mad god of the First World. When even the super family lacks the power to stop him, Superman is sent against his will to a place even he's never been, where he'll find allies he could never have expected. Concluding the events of Future State and Philip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics, the next epic adventure begins here. Thank you, Solicit. That clarified a lot for me, actually. I didn't read Future State, like a lot of people didn't, so I didn't know how hard this creative team would actually go, and this is good. I wouldn't say it's great, but I think it will be. The scenes themselves in this are fantastic, but it also feels a bit disjointed in a much more let's get to where we want to be sort of an issue, and less of a let's be where we are. Now, I love the scene at the Kent farm right before and even during the attack from the cool-looking dude with a Warworld fleet. I don't rightly understand the opening, and while it is all very well written and looks beautiful, I have no idea about the distant future, and then ending with Superman just there is a bit random. And then showing the Book of Kal-El to give some of the fill-in between the then and the now helps. All of those scenes are, again, beautifully drawn and well written, but I think if you're coming in like I was with literally no backstory, the minor segmented nature of this really quick 20-pager can be a little cross-eye inducing. Yes, I know this isn't really the most informative of these reviews, but honestly, my verdict on this is pretty simple. Read it. With an asterisk. Read it means that you should definitely read it for yourselves to make the call whether it is something for you. I would also say that I absolutely do love PKJ on Superman, so I am also personally going back to check out Future State and throwing this onto my pull list. Present Superman in a dystopian future does sound really fun. Ah yes, the highly anticipated new Batman book. He's back in blue and has a really top-tier creative team. Incidentally, this isn't my first foray into first issues of Batman, since long ago I did a Then and Now episode all about Batman, comparing the first Batman issue ever with the Batman number 1 that was most recent at the time, the Tom King DC Rebirth run. Seriously, it's still up on the YouTube, and I have it up on the Then and Now of Comics podcast channel. Regardless, this is Batman number 1, written by Matt Fraction, art by Jorge Jimenez, colors by Tomo Mori, with letters by Clayton Cowles. The reason I've been covering first issues since 2014 is because first issues are special. They are the first chapter to a story, obviously, but more than that, they are the first look at an idea. Sometimes that idea is fairly shallow, with a company wanting a new number 1 because they sell better. Other times it's to give a good pop to a new creative team, but oftentimes it is to mark the shift in direction for a character or characters. This book is probably all 3 of those and more. The general plot is that Batman is chasing down Killer Croc, who's now mutated again. Meanwhile, Commissioner Gordon is a beat cop again, yes, even at his age, so the GCPD is also shifting back to being against Batman and vigilantism. That's basically the plot. It's a very straightforward Batman comic book that doesn't overreach in the plot department. The premise, though, that's where the meat is. The meat of this book, though, is in the premise. The premise is to show off Fraction and Jimenez's Batman. While we're tracking Killer Croc, we're seeing Batman's new arsenal, like his redesigned Batmobile with guard dog capabilities and voice commands. What his new return to the blue costume can do, like give him detective mode and taser gloves. And more importantly, who this Batman is under this creative team. To mildly spoil, Killer Croc has the mind of a child now because he's devolving and hitting this endless cycle, as Ghost Alfred says. It's a very poignant reflection on Batman himself. He's stuck in a cycle and does keep de-evolving and evolving and then going back and forth. But the thing I actually want to spoil here is more the moment between Killer Croc and Batman, who's even taken off his mask to try and connect with Kid Brain Croc more, talking about how Batman used to have the big dinosaur mock-up that's in front of them in the Batcave. Then at the end, Croc gives Bats a little toy dinosaur. And then at the end of the book, right before Robin calls while being held at gunpoint by cops, Batman puts up that little toy dinosaur on a shelf as a trophy. That dinosaur, I think, is the best example of what this era of Batman wants to be. This isn't going to be big and bold, although I'm really sure with Matt Fraction at the helm there will be big and bold moments. The overall theme is going to be small and intimate. And I honestly really like that for this character. The major thing I do actually still have a question about would be, is Bruce seeing a ghost of Alfred here? Or did he come back to life in this relaunch? Or is he an AI subroutine like what Avengers did with Jarvis after he died? None of that's a deal breaker, I'm just curious, and no one's been talking about it, so I feel like I'm the asshole for not knowing. The verdict here is simple. Partially because I legit enjoy the book, and partially because it's being pushed to high hell. My verdict is, collect it. Collect it means that you should have it on your pull list, both digitally and physically, and go through the large number of variants and pick up a couple because they're really good. And another reason why it's absolutely stupid that most comic companies don't even contemplate posters. Yes, that is its own rant, and it will come out one of these days. So go and check out the all-in fresh start for Batman. It's good. The real question before I read this is if it's going to be a direct continuation or if it's going to be like my much maligned review of X-Men 97. They basically just used the name and iconography, but it was essentially its own series. Oh well, let's find out as we swing into Spider-Man 94, number 1. Written by J.M. DeMatteis, art by Jim Toe, colors by Jim Campbell, with letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. The first page, well, technically the second page, literally has Kane seeing a Mufasa-esque Morlun in the sky, saying that he will find him. The him being Spider-Man, I assume. Meanwhile, Peter Parker has gotten Mary Jane back somehow. I say somehow because, yeah, the last time we saw Mary Jane in the cartoon was that she was sent into limbo in a mirror-esque way to Gwen Stacy, and then a clone of her being married to Peter Parker, und then she died. I'm also not liking the Stan Lee erasure from that end storyline. Anyways, it's a good way to give MJ and Peter some drama, and some time in between. Here's the end of the series and the start of this one. But MJ and Peter are just fighting because Peter really wants to have the, hey, I married your clone so it counts. While she's like, well, not really, no. And that's the drama for the issue. While Kane feeds vermin to Morlun, and then there's a fight scene at the end with Kane bursting through the dining room window where Petey, MJ, Aunt May, and Aunt Anna are having dinner. Because MJ and Petey are over their fight. Yes, it was that quick. Now, to be that guy, Spider-Man TAS is my jam when it came to the Marvel cartoons. Granted, that was before it got dropped for X-Men, but the point is, I still loved it then, and I even love it now. Now, I could be harsher on this comic than I probably should be, because last year I binged the entire series with my kids. So when I say this feels off to high hell, I do mean it. And on a comic book side note, why does it feel like J.M. DeMatteis is hired on for Spider books that exist solely for the pop? No, I'm not saying that he doesn't like what he writes, and he's had some decent books out, but at this stage, it's a very worrisome pattern. The dude is a great Spidey writer, and honestly, if this book wasn't wearing the skin of a beloved cartoon, or even if it just looked like the cartoon slightly more, it'd be a decent enough start. Speaking of the looks, the art, I want to say right now, is not bad. It is a good, kind of standard art style for Spider-Man. But if you're going to be making a continuation of a cartoon, the character models are right fucking there. It's not like last week when I covered Star Trek and they comic booked up the look of the characters, because that was live action into comics. Even outside of that, did you look at the wrong cartoon? The 94 Spidey is kind of a beefier guy who looks like he was in his 30s playing a 20-year-old. The model used here in this comic seems to be based off the 2017 design. Again, it looks fine, but it doesn't have any sort of visual identity that cues you in to being based off of Spidey 94. And maybe that's where I'll bring up that a while ago on an old show I did called Binging on Comics, I covered the My Little Ponies comics up to volume 4 or 5, I think. But it is a perfect example of being able to be off-model to a point when you're adapting a cartoon or anything, and now you can very much do your own thing as an artist and a writer without feeling off the source material. I'm just saying there's a lot of ways that this could have worked, but this ain't it, Chiefs. So my verdict is kind of obvious here. It's ignore it, with a minor asterisk. Ignore it means that it is not worth it. It is not worth reading. It's not even worth flaming too hard either. But that's where I'm saying not too hard, because the asterisk is you could actually flame this hard, because if they had John Semper Jr. as the line editor, the writer, or even just fucking messaged him at all about this continuation of his show, you'd have a top-selling book that could be another great 6-issue series that people would want to read. Then it would become an ongoing, and then you'd have more money. But there's the flaming thing. They didn't contact anyone, and I understand that they don't have to, because it is owned by Disney / Marvel / whoever the fuck. But you had a writer, the writer who could easily make the same page rate as anyone you hired, especially J.M. DeMatteis, to give you the book that fans would want, that you would have a great marketing push for. The guy who wrote it is coming back. And all of that is just goddamn embarrassing. But it's a cash grab. God damn. Flame it for ignoring creators or just ignore it. Those are your two choices. To celebrate 10 years since The Force Awakens, Disney's Marvel, that I still sometimes call Mouseful, decided to put out a comic book that wants to celebrate the sequels. Bold, some would say, given even fans of it aren't that really interested in revisiting it. But let's see how this goes with Star Wars Han Solo, Hunt for the Falcon #1. Written by Rodney Barnes, art by Raymond Rosanas, colors by Guru EFX, with letters by Joe Caramagna. Let's go with the solicit to start this off. In a time before The Force Awakens, where is the Millennium Falcon? Less than satisfied with a settled life, Han Solo lands on an idea of reclaiming the Falcon and returning to a life of adventure. The problem is, he can't find it. After enlisting a less than enthusiastic Chewbacca, the duo embarks upon a quest to reclaim the greatest ship in the universe. Standing in their way are a laundry list of rogues who have staked a claim to the Millennium Falcon as well, like the villainous scoundrel who stole the Falcon, Duquesne. I'm going to go on a bit of a soapboxy ranty here. The major issue with Star Wars after the Disney buyout is a very huge hurdle. I mean, I think everyone's already sick of hearing people talk about the before time with the expanded universe, but it is a problem that Lucasfilms made when they made Star Wars into a marketing juggernaut, and saturated the market to be a money-making venture far more than just the 3 original films. Hell, it's only taken like the last few years for people to even culturally know that the Christmas special existed outside of myths and legends and convention bootlegs. But if you were a Star Wars fan pre-2020s, there's a metric fuck ton of lore, from the original continuity to spin-offs, forgetting stuff that even never got mentioned outside of a single novel, video games. While I'm writing this, people are arguing about the canon of Darth Revan because LEGO has announced that they were going to appear in one of their upcoming movies. There's generations, literal generations of material. So when Disney comes along and guts the entire thing to make a clean slate, which does make sense. I'm not saying that it was a mistake. I'm saying on a corporate level, it makes more sense than deciding to rebrand Twitter anyways. But in doing so, they're going to create a split universe, essentially, where some people can't rightly fit both in their heads to an extent. I usually compare it to the boy under the mountain moment from Stephen King's The Dark Tower, when Roland is having a mental mind-fucking breakdown because he went under the mountain with a boy named Jake, but there was no boy because continuity changed. You can't gaslight yourself out of that. And it does sound stupid for a normie, but the reboot of something that's been a pop cultural pillar since the 70s will have that effect. Because again, generations grew up on this. The next generation might really like the sequels. That all being said, the sequels were a mixed bag at best. Can we all agree on that? I know we can't. But I've always been very vocal in the past that I also think that the films, even the originals, have always been the weakest part of the Star Wars IP. Now, all of that is to say that when it comes to a Star Wars comic, I do have a bias because I will die for the Sword of the Jedi, and I do enter reviews knowing that I don't like something, it might just be a subjective take. Cutting off a lot more rambling, I dig this issue for what it is. Essentially, we've got ourselves a Blues Brothery trek to get their car back. Han Solo comes off fairly similar to how he's been portrayed everywhere, since, to be fair, he was also in a very different movie than the rest of the cast. Chewie is probably the most entertaining part of this, but you can't really go wrong with a disgruntled Wookiee right there. Same with the art. It is fairly good artwork, but I do actually have to bring up one more complaint, and this isn't on Rosanas or anything like that, but it is on Star Wars under the Disney era. What the hell is with the art direction of basically just taking modern stuff and just taking the wheels off? Now, granted, I know about the diner scene in Attack of the Clones, but you see it in Book of Boba Fett with their Vespa gang. And here, you also see it with a couple of hover cars that are basically just boxy Chryslers. Again, it's not bad, the art looks great, it's just a weird direction that they keep bringing up into things like small little segments that it's just like, that's weird. Anyways, with all my ranting out of the way, and I feel so sorry to the creators for not really talking about the comic at all, what are my verdicts? My verdict for this book is read it. Read it means it is totally worth a read for you at home. If you dig it, that's awesome, and if you don't, that's also understandable. I'm not sure I'll pull this next issue, but it does seem like a fun trade read when that comes out personally. Exiles is a brilliant series that is essentially alternate versions of Marvel characters traveling through alternate universes and doing all sorts of slider shit. It's really good. So why the hell did anyone think that it needed to be the name used for a cosmic Marvel book that isn't about that? Did Marvel honestly do to the Exiles what they did with Alpha Flight? I really hope not. But let's find out in Imperial War, Exiles #1. Written by Steve Fox, art by Francesco Manna and David Tinto, colors by Eric Arciniega, with letters by Clayton Cowles. Of course, it's not actually based on the massively popular, and yes, it is still very popular, comic book. It's about the Shi'ar side of the Imperial War, kind of. I say kind of because it's actually about the coup on the Shi'ar throne world, and yes, I will pronounce it Shi'ar and Shi'ar. It depends on how the flow works. Where the famed Imperial Guards, led by Electron, who I have no idea who he is, but he has a bird head, so it clearly is that he has a shot at the throne, have turned against Zandra, the daughter of Lilandra and Charles Xavier, who X-fans will know. And she was also the current Magistrix of the Empire, and her Aunt Deathbird is there too. However, Chuckles in his X-bucket hat, and the resurrected Lilandra, who I honestly didn't even know had died recently or come back, that's comics for you. They show up to save both Deathbird and Zandra, and then run off. And Lilandra does a random, "To me, my exiles," moment, except that's showing that she's going to recruit Rocket Raccoon, Corsair, I think that's Danger, and Kid Gladiator? I don't know exactly who the last two are, but yeah, she doesn't even do a "to me, my," and summon them. She's like, I must go recruit them. To me, my, it's a clunky ender is kind of what I mean. So obviously, I'm going to complain that this is called Exiles. It's like calling a book about a team of Avengers on the West Coast the Secret Defenders. They're not. They're two completely different teams. Granted, it worked for X-Factor Investigations, which was very much nothing like the original X-Factor books, but it did carry over a few characters. But you know what could easily make all this worthwhile? If it was actually worthwhile. Now, granted, it's not badly written, mind you, but it's very much a comic meant for someone who isn't me. I've never been a fan of the Shi'ar Empire side of the XIP, and I was also a really big fan of Chuckles being killed, even if I hated the story that happened in. So the only thing this book would need to be a capsule of all the stuff I really don't like about the X-Men would be if Vulcan showed up. Now, what annoys me is that it feels like the second issue is going to be one that I would actually want to see, since I do love me some Corsair and Rocket Raccoon. But it does the awkward thing of being both well-written and a book I absolutely could not find a foothold into liking. The art is also pretty good for what it's worth. So with all of that said, my verdict is... read it. Read it means that you at home should give it a read and see if it works for you. I know that I'm very ambivalent at the best times, but if you don't have the same negativity going on, I think you'll find a pretty decent cosmic book. However, go read the classic Exiles and see why this is a really weird way to use that title. Do I always have to do cold opens for these? Okay, fine, I'll try to come up with something. Fun fact, while listening to Closer by 9 Inch Nails, I was bit so hard by my ex-girlfriend at the time, I still have a scar from it. Yep, that's the cold open. Let's hope this amazing creative team can top that. And I don't even know if that's how you're going to pronounce this. This is Closer, number 1, written by Kieran Gillen, art by Steve Lieber, colors by Tamara Bonvillain, with letters by Clayton Cowles. Okay, so upon reading it, it was indeed better than my random fun fact that I did in the cold open, but I didn't realize how relevant that might actually be. First and foremost, this is actually the collection of the Closer story from Image number 7 through 9. It's a pretty good story about an apocalyptic relationship, closure in said relationship, and why Homer and Marge's couples song is not for everyone else. That would be Why Do Birds Suddenly Appear? The Carpenter's version. I didn't even realize Burt Bacharach did a version. So it's totally worth reading and definitely go and grab a copy. I'd even say go and get the back issues of the anthology for Image to see this and other really interesting sort of stories. Anthologies are our friends. What I actually do want to talk about for this episode of the show, though, has nothing to do with the comic proper. See, my layout for this show is write the cold open before having read it, say the creative team, and then I read the book and write up my little script afterwards. Now, sometimes I look over at League of Comic Geeks, a great website for comic fans and collectors. You should have an account to look over at the solicit in case it's easier for me to use than my overwordy half-a-page summary, or even if it's funnier to use. In doing so, I also see the rating out of 5 stars it's getting, and if it feels weird, I'll look down at some of the fan reviews and then comment on it. So, this book currently has 3.6 stars out of 53 reviews, which isn't bad, but then I quick scrolled down to the only people who commented their reviews actually gave it 1 and 2 stars. But why? The art is great, no one denies that. The writing is also really good. So, as famed comic nerd Shane Helms would say, what's up with that? Well, the main problem that everyone had in common was simple. It was meaningless and had no point. I'm actually kind of heated about that because I only ever see this for one-shots or limited series that are not tied to any of the big twos, but never for actually meaningless issues. Now, there's a very awkward amount of people who seem to think that a one-and-done story is meaningless. Does that mean that it has to be enjoyed? No, of course not. Subjectivity is always a thing. But why do so many comic readers feel that comics become meaningless if they're not tied to an ongoing? Comics are a medium, not a genre. And it's like saying a short story is not as meaningful as a novel, which is just wrong and annoying. Yes, I know I'm being a grumpy Gus today, but I'm just annoyed about how many people shrug off a story like this because it's not superhero enough for them. Okay, I have more comics to read. Short answer, go and pick up this. It's really good if you like good stories. I can't do a cold open for this because I read this book instead of making my semi-silly opening, so let's just dive into Everything Dead and Dying number 1. Written by Tate Bromble, art by Jacob Phillips, colors by Pip Martin, with letters by Aditya Bidikar. You know what's fantastic? Zombie comics have the same sort of rollout that an actual zombie virus would. They're usually a massive horde when a zombie movie comes out, or some other milestone thing with a zombie would come out, like when the Walking Dead comic book ended and everyone scrambled to take its place. But we've reached the dry spell where Zombie Medium used to be stacked like 4 to 12 a month, we're now at the second month of a new version of first issues, so it is wild to see we are getting our first zombie comic here, and for it to be so damn good. I'm going to go into the solicit because I don't honestly want to spoil anything, but the solicit is a public blurb, so that's okay, I suppose. Everything Dead and Dying follows Jack Chandler, a sole survivor of the zombie apocalypse hunkered down in his rural farming community. But rather than eliminate them, Jack has chosen to continue living alongside the undead, including the husband and adopted daughter he fought so hard to have. But when his town is discovered by outsiders, Jack suddenly becomes the one thing standing in the way of those who hope to kill his family for good. Yeah, so much for not spoiling anything, huh? To not get into specifics, the sheer bitter beating heart of this comic is empathetically heartbreaking. You can say it's because I'm a father that a certain through line of this book just wrecks me while reading it, or you can say it's because the narration is a gut-wrenching story of humanity, society, loss, and a bit of denial thrown in. Or maybe I just don't like watching zombie chickens get their heads cut off. You know, take your pick from that list. But the fact that we get Jack and his husband and his daughter, and even his daughter's mother's history, told in a story to his daughter, in that special way that a parent will tell a story to a child, and then the shifts between the past and the present, it all weaves together into a grand tragedy that even has the ending make you instantly dislike the outsiders, even if they don't do anything outside the last page or anything really wrong. Bromble makes this book beautiful, and I am shocked that I haven't seen his name on a lot of stuff, but I am looking forward to Batgirl number 12. This dude with Cassandra Cain may in fact hurt me to my core. But the art, I can't dismiss the art at all on this because it is spectacular to give that dirty, harsh reality. And there's even a moment, this is a really nice moment that Pip Martin uses the colors to pretty much wash out all of the colors from Jack while everything else is popping, vibrant, and beautiful. Although I am hoping I'm not just reading way too much into that. Short of it all, get this right now. And that's my verdict. The verdict for this comic is, collect it. Collect it means that you should have this comic on your pull list to read it, go and get the physical copy to collect it, hell, get any variants you find too, and do that for every issue that comes out for this. And of course, finally get the trade when that comes out, as your main reader. It really is truly a first issue that makes me remember how great first issues can actually be. I really like this creative team, but I'm about to call my shots, since this is James Robinson in an indie book. So we're going to have, to look at my bingo card, we're going to have some deep sea horror atmosphere, a spunky young reluctant hero of a lead, and a steampunk robot at some point. Now I'm going to sound like such an asshole if none of that appears in The Adventures of Lumen N, number 1. Script by James Robinson, pencils by Phil Hester, inks by Mark Deering, colors by Bill Crabtree, with letters by Jim Campbell. The year is 1901, and our heroine, Lumen, is a precocious 13-year-old with many questions about her life. Why has her father been gone for years? Why must she learn so many languages and fighting techniques? And what's with all the lessons in seafaring? That was a terrible joke. Then an attack on her home by a horde of steampunk assassins delivered the first glimmer of an answer, when Lumen's savior reveals himself as her grandfather, the legendary Captain Nemo, one of the greatest characters in Victorian science fiction. A brand new world of steampunk adventure and thrills are about to open up for Lumen as she connects with the grandfather she never knew, while together they take on a cabal of evil masterminds intent on world domination, a world full of heroes and villains from Victorian adventure and fantasy fiction. I did kind of call each shot there fairly well, if the elephant counts as a steampunk thing. But that's because Robinson also knows how to make that type of stuff work. I mean it. I can call the shots, but they're always a blast and a half, and I wasn't expecting actual Captain Nemo to show up. Honestly, it's really awesome how he's introduced too, with the very first couple of pages of this, where it gets unsealed from a statue. Such octopus. Much wow. It works really well. But more than that, I want to bring up that I'm trying to remember the last time Captain Nemo was actually in a comic. I mean, outside of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I know there's been some adaptations, and maybe one or two really quick references elsewhere, but the only one that actually comes to my mind right now is that Captain Nemo manga-esque graphic novel from the mid-2000s. But it is weird. I mean, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen really utilized the character, and I really hadn't thought about it until Nemo came riding in on a golden elephant, but I legitimately cannot fathom that especially in the last 10 to 15 years, with the ungodly rise of sea-based Kraken-motifed indie work, we haven't gotten more appearances from him. Huh. Anyways, the book is a solid first issue. It makes Lumen the perfect sort of precocious audience surrogate that goes balls to the wall with the action. It works great. As for the art, it's Phil Hester. It looks awesome. It's my favorite type of moody indie art, angular but not quite, dark line work but never feeling dull or oversaturated, and colors that pop but are a bit muted. It's all just awesome. So my verdict, I think, is a very easy to say, buy it. Buy it means that you should have it on your pull list digitally. You should have a physical copy of it to own. Personally, I think this sort of art always looks best in physical, although I also think that it looks best on newsprint, but I understand that that's just me being old. You should see my rants about how much I hate 4K high def. I legitimately thought this was going to be some sort of Top Gun-style book based on the game Afterburner. Then I looked at the cover and I was very confused for a couple of seconds. Check out the movie starring Dave Bautista and Samuel L. Jackson, coming out September 19th. Oh, that's next week. Cool. Anyways, this is Afterburn, Bad Blood Number 1. Written by Scott Chitwood, art by Etienne de Repentigny, colors by Rhonda Pattison, with letters by Troy Pateri. So, it wasn't a zombie book like I initially thought. The overall premise of this universe is that the solar flare hit the Earth, decimating the dayside, and that would be Asia, Europe, and Africa. Those that didn't die became roving bands of mutants, as often is the case. The actual premise of the book specific is that we follow Jake, Drea, and Matthias, a trio that go into the post-apocalyptic wasteland to do the fun stuff of collecting high-value things from the dangerous people. It is a solid premise for some epic, episodic storytelling, and that's the plot here. The plot here is that in their latest adventure, Jake and his team are hired to not find a lost treasure in the African burn zone, but actually find a lost person. However, as they face the hostile mercenaries and mutated locals, they begin to realize there's more to the situation than meets the eye. And the rest of the book is great in its straightforwardness in the big twist at the end. I think that's the best way to phrase it. It is unabashedly straightforward. The book is a fun read, and I know some people may take that in a negative because it isn't a head-scratcher or something that I can truly gush about. It's good because it's a fun read, and I absolutely want to read more. One of the hardest things to do is make a book that's a joy to read, because there's not truly a lot to say that isn't just me going, it's good, the characters are good, the art is good, it's fun, read it. And I know it's also unfair to a book like Afterburn, which has me going back to check out the previous miniseries and the IP, because this was so enjoyable. It's only the first issue, but it sets up fairly well to have me be very positive and want more, which I think is the best thing a comic can honestly do. So my verdict is, pull it with an asterisk. Pull it means that it should be on your digital pull list or your physical pull list to read every issue that comes out. And if you really do enjoy it, go for the single issue physicals because they have some great covers. Definitely get the physical trade when that comes out. The asterisk is, if you read this issue and dig it, do check out the previous limited series from this franchise. Oh, and check the movie out. That looks like it'll be fun. So I've spent the last 2 days on a roof after spending a month trying to get reasonable prices on roofing that doesn't happen and shingles that cost way too much, more than they should, and I've had to have 5 separate outlets to get enough without ordering them that would have taken months. I need me a cool-off comic right now, so Xenoscope, thrill me with Oz, the Tablet of Destinies, number 1. Written by Dave Wohl, art by Massimiliano Lamano. Really? Okay. Colors by Robbie Bavard, with letters by Taylor Esposito. Yes, thank you. That's actually something I really needed. The plot is straightforward. When Dorothy is sent to retrieve the powerful Tablet of Destiny to save time itself, she faces an impossible choice. Stop the ancient witches from destroying Oz, or complete her mission, at the cost of her adopted home. This was oddly nice. No, I haven't been keeping up with Xenoscope's Grim Fairy Tales, although I would love to talk with them about doing a comic a day series solely based off that line. It'd be really fun. But I do often enjoy the books that come by when I do this show. Yes, it's always first issue, so it's either an event-ish comic like this, which shows Dorothy her hunky persona of a lion, and her tin dude facing off against Glinda and her boss. Or a one-shot that I have no idea how it fits into... Or a one-shot that I have absolutely no idea how it fits into the wider world of the Grim Fairy Tales, or the start of an ongoing series that I, sadly, always seem to have to fall back on. Either way, they're all usually really fun, and then I get into it, and then I get bogged down with this show and other projects, so I fall off, and then it's a vicious cycle. Edited out a few bits there, but speaking of vicious cycles, you'll never guess the news of what just happened while I was recording this. No, I'm not saying what it is. I'm mostly keeping this part in for my own posterity's sake. Sort of like when I keep most of my jokes about what if Hillary wins the election in my older episodes. Anyways, my verdict is pick up this comic. It is definitely readable, and a great read that gets you invested into this version of Oz. With beefy lion men and Dorothy blasting hex bolts all over the place against Glinda. It's neat. It is always refreshing reading a Xenoscope book, so this may also get you into checking out some of their mainline books and give them a peek. Granted, I am still chasing the high of Pat Shan's Robin Hood comics, so take that for what it is. This has been a hell of a week. Hi, I'm AJ Carey. This may be my channel, but this is not my show. This is Sammy's Picks. Basically, once a week, my co-host on Killing 15 Minutes, Mything 15 Minutes, and Blanking 15 Minutes, oh, and she's also my sister, picks a new release from our first issues pool that she wants to talk about as a barely literate casual comic reader. So, time for the Casual Comicist. This shall be fun.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Sam Rossi, the Casual Comicist, and this is Sammy's Picks, where I review the first issue of a comic book. Okay, so I'm a sucker for Gene Roddenberry, which means I picked Star Trek Voyager Homecoming #1. This gotta be good. I want to thank and acknowledge writers Susan Bridges and Tilly Bridges, the artist Angel Hernandez, colorist Charlie Kirchhoff, and letterers, because I believe letterers are artists, Neil Yitek. At the time of this recording, it is September 8th, 2025. On this day in history, specifically 1966, Star Trek aired to unexpected families each week. The show would span a fandom that is expansive today. Just a little factoid. Homecoming. It is all about the end of the 7-year misadventures of Captain Janeway and her crew. They were finally made to Earth in the Alpha Quadrant from being in the Delta Quadrant. There is a recap, which I absolutely love. I haven't seen the end of Voyager in, let's just say, a long time. We hear about the highlights of their journey from the Delta Quadrant. We meet a bunch of We meet a bunch of admirals from Earth who come aboard. One of them is Tom Paris's father, Admiral Paris. Tuvok is having headaches, so he's sent to the sick bay. B'Elanna and Tom have a baby girl, which is also in sickbay, and most of the admirals go to engineering, while Admiral Paris goes to see his son, daughter-in-law, and his granddaughter. This is in that area is where we find out. Well, we meet up with the doctor. I love the doctor. This is where they all find out basically that the admirals, excluding Paris, were species 8472. Trying to bring their hive to the Alpha Quadrant from wherever they are from. They want to take over their Alpha Quadrant, and that's basically what everybody wants to do. And that's where we end the issue. The story makes me think of an actual live action TV episode. I don't remember the end of the TV series, so this made me remember my love for Gene Roddenberry and such. The art is pretty good. I don't like how Tuvok was drawn, but you can tell who it is, so I'm grasping at straws here. The coloring is perfect, letters are on point. If you haven't guessed it yet, I want you to read the story. It feels very much as if it is done by Gene Roddenberry and a part of the show. I loved everything about this book. But if you think I'm wrong, let me know at Carry On Productions on Facebook or Carry On Prod on X. I am the Casual Comicist, Sam Rossi. Live long and prosper, my friends.
With all of that, though, maybe I'm wrong or I missed a comic worth talking about. Let me know on the YouTube video version of this, or whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or on social media at The Comic Archivist on Facebook, on Twitter at AJC_doesitall, and even on Blue Sky at AJCdoesitall, without any underscore. I'm always open to being told how wrong I am about the current mainstream and indie books alike. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, and all the other stuff that I'm being told I need to say in order to keep this show going. Don't forget to check out the other Carry On Production podcasts like Killing 15 Minutes, Mything 15 Minutes, and Blinking 15 Minutes. They're great, better than these, I promise. More than anything, though, remember to stay golden, Inklings.